I grew up mostly in the deep, deep South, and while there's so much that steers a person down a particular path, I do remember a few key moments. In middle school, I remember watching Walmart utterly destroy a pristine wetland just outside of city limits and regulations, and then seeing the small mom-and-pop businesses close shop. I remember the massive clear-cutting and controlled burning of thousands of acres of old-growth forests, and I went through some of the worst public ed in the country. Ultimately, I left high school like so many others with all the idealism in the world and not a clue as to what to do with it. I jumped right into genetics, cancer research, thinking that this would help me save the world. However, my colleagues and I were being groomed for ever-narrowing fields of specialization until we were studying the left eye of a squid to professionally define ourselves. I found myself alone in the lab one night, staring at a petri dish, and every cell in my body screaming out loud that this reductionist approach was not the way. I reacted. I swung the pendulum, and admittedly, I ran away. Bars and restaurants were indeed an escape, but they did allow me the freedom to travel the world, meet amazing people, and to see firsthand that the problems we face are global, and that others struggle like me, not with desire, but action. 4 years ago, I met my very soon-to-be wife on a BART train in San Francisco. And to make the most amazing story of my life too short, I followed my heart and landed here in the desert. A clean slate, a new beginning. I was tired of running. I had zoomed too far out from that petri dish. I think I was drawing on some of that past educational trauma, and I found a small high school that was open to exploring my ideas. Stepping into a classroom of truly disconnected youth forced me to find new ways to engage. Whatever reason they came to our particular school, homelessness, teen pregnancy, drug use, or English just not being their first language, the education system had failed and was failing them. And I would argue that it fails all students, if only in the ways that it kills leadership and collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. I wanted to give my students something they could sink their teeth into. We began with the rehabilitation of 2 acres of neglected school grounds. And as we literally got our hands dirty, way before this project was anything worth mentioning, a relationship between ourselves and the land and each other started to develop. This hard, dry desert was drawing our attention instead of to what was lacking, to what was given. And my own personal perspective started to shift dramatically. But what was most powerful was the change I was seeing in this group of dropout, knocked out, generally just down and out kids light up as they took ownership. From what looked to be an impossible plot of land doomed to flood and kick up dust, we, together, built a garden. The goal is simple: to integrate the disciplines within larger world contexts. We seek to teach math, art, science, literature, and history through hands-on projects that empower our youth with real-world skills to build their own houses, to grow their own food, and to start their own businesses. It indeed takes a village, so together our students and community members are building a demonstration site that showcases place-appropriate, sustainable techniques replicable on the large and small scale. It seems so easy to sum up now. It didn't start that way. We began with the simple need for a site plan. Our math students used an existing rock wall as an XY coordinate axis and laid out elements along Fibonacci spirals and fractals. As we started to dig over 2,000 feet of rain harvesting swales, it only seemed appropriate to bring in physics principles like fluid dynamics. Visible salt in the soil clued off chemistry lessons, which then led to the wiring of solar panels. When it came time to plant, why would we not bring out the biology classes to study plant physiology and water cycles? The labyrinth was our cosmology, as we tracked the arches of the sun from the low winter on the outside to the high summer in the center, the design of which can be found 4,000 years ago on cave walls all across the world and today on the floors of Catholic churches. History. Literature students get to study the mythology of the Minotaur, and art classes are responsible for making it beautiful through mosaics, sculpture, and whatever medium strikes their imagination. We didn't invent these connections. They were already and always there. We as adults can't continue to approach problems with our pre-calculus Part B tool. We need to use everything we've experienced, everything that we know. We should teach that to our children. From that initial connection to the land, we started to develop other projects, including a Roman-style aqueduct built from glass bottles to carry water, an outdoor amphitheater constructed from adobe earth bags, a geodesic greenhouse that'll draw on our pond for nutrients and our chickens for warmth, and a classroom that showcases natural building materials, straw bale, cob, adobe, rammed earth. We're obviously highlighting the importance of rainwater harvesting in a desert climate, renewable energy sources in a city that gets 472 days of sun each year, passive heating and cooling, building design, the embodied impact and energy of concrete and non-locally sourced materials, the polluting effects of synthetic pesticides on our honeybees and ourselves, carbon sequestration, biofuel production, appropriate technology, how to use a hammer. The list of educational opportunities is endless, but they all came from that initial connection. We are attempting to instill in our youth an ability to see the big picture, to check out the interconnectedness of our world, and then find the role they wish to play. As I was reminded earlier this week, it's not the product, but the process that matters, and I totally agree. And I would just take it just one step further, that it is the mindset from which we first embark that makes all the difference. There's a wonderful community college professor here that I've had the privilege of working with, and you've had the pleasure of listening today, Paul Hodgkin. And every time we talk, he always returns to this idea that nature cycles, that nature doesn't waste, that if nature built a cell phone when it broke, I'd be able to eat it. There's a lot of permaculture concepts to draw on here, but the gist is to look to the regenerative and holistic essence of natural systems when designing human systems, as we're not separate. That's the framework we have to start operating from. There are a number of reasons we've lost touch with the world out there. Indoor plumbing, trash collection, pre-packaged, pre-portioned microwavable meals. We only run oil pipelines through our oceans, spray poisons on our food, and kill each other because we have created an idea of separateness, one that ignores the relationships and connections that are there, whether we acknowledge them or not. The disconnect lives in our minds, and it is only from our mind and our mindset that we can change. And where better to start than education? A system originally designed to produce good Prussian soldiers that fueled the growth of an industrial economy. What if we change that? What if our economy was based in regeneration and our schools advocated critical thinking and served as a place for communities to come together? What if the next generation of engineers, doctors, lawyers, mechanics, and grocery store clerks operated in a symbiotic relationship with each other and the environment? Imagine if El Paso looked like it rained every day. During our monsoon season, our streets and cities are designed to shed water as quickly as possible, which turns this into raging rivers and our poorer neighborhoods into lakes. What if we dug swales, cut curbs, installed gutters, and diverted that water into cisterns and basins planted with food-producing trees? What if we set solar panels up on our roofs? Or better yet, what if we were audacious enough to set up cooperatively owned neighborhood battery banks in which we are in control of and never paid again for electricity? What if we simply composted our food scraps? There's a long list of low-hanging fruit that we can all do, and I strongly, strongly encourage it. But it's not going to be enough. We cannot do this through bullet points. We cannot do this through that reductionist lens. Food requires more than nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and the inner workings of a squid mean more than just throwing together the mechanical parts. I don't want to reduce this down to only agriculture, as we need this framework across all fields. However, my contention is that if we start with a relationship to the planet, that which provides our basic necessities, food, water, air, shelter, whatever systems, products, or solutions we create from that place will thrive. So Even though corporations are incredibly huge these days and there is an ever-growing disparity of wealth, they're nothing compared to the concerted efforts of an entire population. In fact, they're dependent on them. It is time that the bottom of the pyramid starts shaking. Look to natural systems and see how you can shift your own home and business, and then please, by all means, spread it. But I implore you, instead of fighting so hard for policy changes and only looking at top-down, trickle-down approaches, bring it to the masses, those that need it most, those who have nothing to lose, and to those who will listen. I'd like to close with a short quote from an interview I heard a few months ago. And the question that was asked was, do you feel like you're just preaching to the choir? And the gentleman being interviewed gave the best response I could have imagined, one that I'm obviously stealing. And he said, absolutely. I absolutely preach to the choir, if only so they'll sing louder. There is an amazing group of individuals gathered here today doing a wide range of wonderful things. This school is just an example. One seed that's been planted. One iteration of many that are needed across the country and the world. I use it metaphorically, but also literally. If each of us went home today and planted one fruit tree in our mulched front yard, ripe for the taking, talked to our neighbors and had our block do the same, this would change and spread across cities, countries, and would literally shift our relationship to the world. The point is, the power resides right here, right now. Go and plant, go and preach, go and sing. Together, we can absolutely do this. Thank you.